Tonight, I will tell you the calm and gentle story of the scientist Albert Einstein. You do not need to stay awake. Just listen and allow your mind to drift slowly. Long before his name became known across the world, Albert was simply a quiet child sitting near a window in a small apartment in Germany. The air outside was often cool and still, and soft light would fall across the wooden floor and rest gently on the furniture. His home was not loud or busy. It was filled with ordinary things. A wooden table, a few chairs, and books resting quietly on shelves. The faint sound of footsteps moved softly from the street below. Albert was born in 1879 in the city of Ulm. His parents were calm and thoughtful people. His father worked with electrical equipment and wires, and at that time electricity was still new and unfamiliar to many people. His mother enjoyed music and often played the piano. Her fingers moved slowly and gently across the keys, filling the room with soft, peaceful sound. Young Albert would sit nearby, listening quietly, his small hands resting in his lap, his eyes watching, and his mind slowly wandering into thoughts no one else could see. As a very young child, Albert did not speak much. His parents waited patiently, wondering when he would begin to speak more freely. But Albert was not silent because he had nothing to say. He was silent because he was observing. He was listening. He was thinking. His mind moved slowly and carefully, like calm water flowing through a quiet river. One day, his father showed him a small object that would stay in his memory for the rest of his life. It was a simple compass. The small needle inside moved on its own, always pointing in one direction. Albert held it carefully in his hand. He turned it slowly and watched the needle move again and again. He could not see what was moving it. There was no hand touching it and no wind pushing it, and yet it moved. He sat quietly near the window holding the compass and thinking. The room around him was still. The sound of distant footsteps echoed softly outside. But inside his mind something had begun to awaken. He began to understand that there were invisible things in the world. Forces that could not be seen, but were always present, guiding and shaping everything. This quiet moment stayed with him. It became one of the first times he realized that the world was full of hidden patterns waiting to be understood. As Albert grew older, he attended school. The classrooms were simple, with wooden desks placed in rows. Sunlight entered slowly through tall windows and settled across open books and blank paper. The teacher spoke, and students listened and copied words onto their pages. Albert was not always comfortable in school. He did not enjoy memorizing facts without understanding them. He preferred to sit quietly and think deeply about simple questions, questions that others often ignored. He would look at light entering through the window and wonder what light really was. He would watch dust floating in the air and wonder why it moved the way it did. While other students rushed through their work, Albert moved slowly and carefully. He was not in a hurry. His thoughts needed time to grow. He often preferred to be alone, walking slowly along quiet streets or sitting peacefully with a book resting in his hands. The world around him moved at its normal pace, but inside his mind, everything moved differently, calmly, patiently, and with deep curiosity. His family later moved to another city, and Albert found himself in new surroundings. New streets, new buildings, and new quiet corners to explore. His father continued his work with electrical machines, and Albert would sometimes sit nearby watching. Wires rested across wooden tables, and tools lay neatly arranged. In the quiet hum of electrical equipment, Albert felt calm and focused. He did not fully understand everything he saw, but he felt drawn to it. In the evenings, he returned to his room, a small, simple space with a desk and a chair. Papers rested neatly on the surface, and a soft lamp provided gentle light. Outside the window, the night air remained still and peaceful. Albert would sit there sometimes for long periods, simply thinking, his mind slowly turning questions over and over. He was not searching for quick answers. He was learning to live with questions, to let them rest quietly in his thoughts. As the years passed, Albert became more independent. He moved away from his family to continue his education in Switzerland. There he attended school in the quiet city of Zurich. The building stood calmly beside clean streets and still water. The air carried a cool, peaceful feeling. Albert attended classes during the day, sitting quietly among other students, listening, writing, and thinking. But he also spent much of his time alone, walking beside the lake, watching the gentle movement of water, and feeling the quiet presence of the world around him. He was not the loudest student. He was not the most noticeable. But inside his calm, quiet mind, something important was slowly forming. He was learning to think in his own way. He was learning to trust his curiosity. After finishing his studies, Albert faced a quiet and uncertain time. He needed work. He needed a place where he could live and continue his life. He searched patiently and eventually found a position in a small office in the city of Bern. It was a patent office, a quiet place where new ideas arrived on paper. Each day, Albert walked to the office. The streets were calm, and the sound of his footsteps steady and soft. He entered the building and sat at his desk. Papers rested in neat stacks around him. His job was to examine ideas and inventions created by others. He read their descriptions carefully and imagined how their machines would work. The room was peaceful. The sound of turning pages filled the air. Light entered gently through the windows and rested across his desk. While others saw this job as ordinary, Albert found comfort in its quiet rhythm. And in the quiet hours between reading papers, his mind began to wander. He thought about space. He thought about time. He thought about light. No one around him knew it yet, but in the calm silence of this small office, Albert Einstein was beginning to see the universe in a completely new way. The days in the patent office continued in a calm and steady rhythm. Each morning, Albert walked along the quiet streets of Bern. The air was often cool and fresh, and the sound of distant carts moving over stone roads blended softly with the steady pattern of his footsteps. He carried simple papers under his arm and entered the building with quiet focus. Inside, the rooms were orderly and still. Wooden desks stood in rows, papers were stacked neatly, and ink bottles rested beside pens. The soft scratching of writing could sometimes be heard, but most of the day was wrapped in gentle silence. Albert sat at his desk reading descriptions of new machines and electrical devices. He carefully imagined how each invention would function. He would pause and picture gears turning slowly or invisible currents flowing through wires. This habit of imagining things clearly in his mind became one of his greatest strengths. He did not need large laboratories or complex tools. His mind itself was a peaceful laboratory, always open and always observing. During quiet moments between his official work, Albert allowed his thoughts to return to the questions that had followed him since childhood. He thought about light. He remembered sitting by a window as a boy, watching sunlight enter the room and wondering what it truly was. Now, as a young man, he returned to that same gentle curiosity. He began to imagine something unusual. He imagined what it would feel like to move alongside a beam of light, traveling beside it through empty space. In his mind, he pictured the journey clearly and calmly, observing how everything might appear. These thoughts did not arrive suddenly. They unfolded slowly, like morning lights spreading across a quiet landscape. He carried them with him throughout his day. He carried them as he walked home in the evening, and as he sat quietly at his desk under the soft glow of his lamp. Outside, the world remained calm and ordinary, but inside his mind, new understanding was slowly forming. Albert also spent quiet time with a small circle of thoughtful friends. They met in simple rooms, sometimes sitting around a table with books nearby. They spoke gently about science, nature, and the deeper questions of existence. Their conversations were never rushed. Each idea was allowed to rest and grow. These peaceful discussions helped Albert refine his thoughts and see his ideas more clearly. During this period, Albert was not famous. He lived simply. He woke each morning, walked to the patent office, completed his work, and returned home in the evening. His life followed a steady and predictable rhythm. This quiet routine gave him something very valuable. It gave him time to think, time to observe, time to understand. In the year 1905, when Albert was 26 years old, his quiet thinking began to take form on paper. One evening, as darkness settled gently outside his window, he sat at his desk and began writing. The lamp beside him cast a warm, steady light across the page. His room was silent, and his mind was calm and focused. He wrote about the nature of light and motion. He realized that the speed of light remained the same, no matter how someone moved. This simple realization led him to a deeper understanding. It suggested that time itself was not fixed. Time could move differently depending on motion. This idea was calm, yet powerful. It revealed that time was not the same everywhere, but flowed gently in its own way, depending on the observer. Albert wrote carefully, choosing his words with clarity. He described how space and time were connected, forming a single unified structure. He explained that energy and matter were also connected, and that even a small amount of matter contained a great amount of energy. These ideas were written quietly, without ceremony, in the peaceful solitude of his small room. During that same year, he wrote several papers. Each one explored a different part of nature. He explained the motion of tiny particles moving in liquid, showing that invisible atoms were real. He explained how light behaved both as a wave and as small packets of energy. Each paper was the result of calm thought and patient observation. When he finished writing, he placed the papers into envelopes and sent them to scientific journals. There was no celebration, no announcement, just a quiet act of sharing his thoughts with the world. After sending them, he returned to his normal routine. He continued working at the patent office. He continued walking the same streets. He continued living the same peaceful life. At first, very few people noticed. His papers arrived quietly, just like many others. But slowly, careful readers began to understand their importance. Scientists in distant cities read his words and reflected deeply. They saw something new, something clear and beautiful. His ideas began to spread gently, moving from one mind to another. Albert himself remained calm and unchanged. He did not seek attention. He did not chase recognition. He simply continued thinking, observing, and writing. His greatest joy came from understanding, not from fame. As the months passed, more scientists began to recognize his work. Letters arrived with questions and appreciation. Invitations began to appear, offering him opportunities to teach and share his ideas. The quiet patent clerk was slowly becoming known to the wider world. Yet even as recognition grew, Albert remained the same thoughtful and peaceful person. He continued to value quiet moments, long walks, and calm reflection. He trusted the slow and steady process of understanding. In the gentle silence of his room, as night settled peacefully over the city, Albert Einstein continued his work. His thoughts moved patiently, like the steady flow of a quiet river, carrying him toward deeper understanding of the universe. As the years passed, Albert Einstein slowly moved away from his quiet life in the patent office and into the peaceful world of teaching and research. Universities began to recognize the value of his ideas, and he was offered positions where he could teach students and continue his thinking. He accepted these opportunities with calm humility. He did not see himself as someone extraordinary. He saw himself simply as a person who was curious and patient. His days began to follow a new rhythm. In the mornings, he walked through quiet university halls. His footsteps echoed softly along the floors, and sunlight entered through tall windows, resting gently on the walls. He carried papers and books under his arm, his mind already turning with quiet thoughts. When he entered the classroom, he stood before his students and spoke in a calm and gentle voice. He explained ideas slowly, using simple words so that everyone could understand. He did not rush. He allowed each idea to unfold naturally. After his lectures, Albert returned to his office. The room was simple and peaceful. A desk stood near the window, covered with papers filled with careful writing. A chair rested beside it, and nearby sat his violin, waiting quietly. Outside the window, trees moved gently in the wind. The world outside continued its steady rhythm. While inside the room, Albert continued his quiet exploration of the universe. During this time, his thoughts began to focus on gravity. Gravity was something everyone experienced, yet no one fully understood. Albert wondered if gravity was not simply a force pulling objects together, but something deeper. He imagined space not as empty and flat, but as something flexible and able to bend. He pictured space like a smooth surface that could curve gently when something heavy rested upon it. He spent many hours sitting quietly at his desk, writing and thinking. Sometimes he paused and stared out the window, allowing his mind to rest. These quiet pauses were not empty. They were part of his thinking. He understood that insight often arrived during moments of stillness. He trusted the slow process of reflection. Years passed as he worked patiently on these ideas. He filled many pages with careful reasoning. Each step brought him closer to a deeper understanding. Eventually, he completed what became known as his theory of general relativity. This theory described gravity not as an invisible pulling force, but as a gentle bending of space and time itself. At first, his ideas were difficult for many people to understand. They were new and unfamiliar, but Albert remained calm. He knew that understanding often required time. He did not try to force acceptance. He allowed his work to speak quietly for itself. In 1919, an important observation was made during a solar eclipse. Scientists carefully watched the light of distant stars as it passed near the sun. They observed that the light bent slightly, just as Albert had predicted. This quiet confirmation brought his work into wider awareness. His ideas were no longer only words on paper. They had been seen in the natural world. News of this discovery spread across many countries. Albert's name began to appear in newspapers. People spoke about his work with curiosity and respect. But despite this growing recognition, Albert himself remained unchanged. He continued his simple routines. He preferred quiet walks, peaceful evenings, and time alone with his thoughts. His appearance became familiar to many people. His hair, often uncombed, framed his thoughtful face. His eyes carried a calm and distant focus. He did not dress in elaborate clothing. He chose comfort and simplicity. His outward appearance reflected his inward nature. Quiet, calm, unconcerned with attention. During these years, the world itself was changing. New political movements were rising, and uncertainty spread across parts of Europe. Albert believed deeply in peace and human dignity. He spoke gently about the importance of understanding and cooperation. He believed that knowledge should bring people together, not divide them. As conditions in Germany became more difficult, Albert made the careful decision to leave. He traveled to the United States, where he accepted a position at a quiet institute in Princeton. This new place offered him peace and stability. The campus was calm, with trees lining peaceful paths and buildings standing quietly in the sunlight. In Princeton, Albert found a familiar rhythm once again. Each day, he walked slowly to his office. He greeted colleagues kindly and entered his quiet workspace. He sat at his desk, surrounded by papers and books. Outside the window, the world moved gently. Inside, his mind continued its lifelong journey of discovery. He continued to think about the universe, searching for deeper unity in nature. He believed that beneath the many forces and patterns, there was a simple harmony waiting to be understood. He worked patiently, never rushing, never forcing answers. Even as he grew older, his curiosity remained alive. He continued to observe, to reflect, and to imagine. The same quiet curiosity that had begun in childhood remained with him, guiding him gently forward. In the peaceful silence of his Princeton office, with soft light resting across his desk and the world moving quietly outside, Albert Einstein continued his calm and patient search for understanding. In Princeton, Albert Einstein settled into a life of quiet routine and peaceful reflection. His home was simple and comfortable, located along a calm street lined with trees. Each morning, soft light entered through the windows, gently illuminating the rooms where he lived and worked. The world outside moved slowly, and inside his home, everything remained calm and familiar. He woke each day without hurry. He dressed simply, often choosing comfort over appearance. His clothes were plain, and he paid little attention to fashion. What mattered most to him was the quiet time he had to think. After preparing for the day, he often walked slowly to the institute where he worked. The path was peaceful, and the air was fresh. Leaves rested quietly on the ground, and the sound of his footsteps blended gently with the morning stillness. When he arrived at his office, he sat at his desk near the window. Papers were arranged neatly before him, some filled with writing, others waiting patiently for new ideas. He picked up his pen and continued his work. Sometimes he wrote. Sometimes he simply sat and thought. He understood that thinking was not something that could be forced. It required patience and calm attention. Outside his window, trees moved gently in the wind. The sunlight shifted slowly as the hours passed. Albert remained at his desk, focused and peaceful. He continued searching for a deeper understanding of the universe. He believed that nature followed simple and beautiful rules, even if they were not always easy to see. In the afternoons, he often took walks. These walks were important to him. They gave his mind space to rest and wander freely. He walked without rushing, observing the quiet world around him. He noticed small details, like the movement of leaves or the changing light. These simple moments brought him peace. Albert also continued to play the violin. Music had been part of his life since childhood. In the quiet evenings, he held the violin gently and played soft melodies. The sound filled the room and created a calm and peaceful atmosphere. Music allowed him to relax and reflect. It was another way for him to connect with the beauty of the world. Students and visitors often came to see him. They entered his office with respect and curiosity. Albert welcomed them kindly. He listened carefully to their questions and shared his thoughts in a calm and gentle way. He did not speak to impress others. He spoke to help them understand. He believed that curiosity was something precious, and he encouraged others to explore their own questions. Even as he grew older, his daily life remained simple. He continued walking, thinking, writing, and playing music. He did not seek attention or praise. He found satisfaction in quiet understanding. His mind remained active, always exploring, always curious. As the years passed, his body became weaker, but his spirit remained calm. He spent more time resting, often sitting near the window in his home. He watched the changing light of day and the peaceful movement of the world outside. These quiet moments gave him comfort. In April of 1955, Albert Einstein reached the final days of his life. He remained calm and peaceful. He had spent his life observing the universe with patience and wonder. He had followed his curiosity wherever it led him. He had shown that even the quiet thoughts of a single person could change how humanity understands reality. He passed away gently in Princeton, leaving behind a legacy of knowledge and inspiration. His work continued to live on in the minds of others. His ideas became part of how people understood space, time, and the universe itself. Today, Albert Einstein is remembered not only for his discoveries, but for his calm and thoughtful way of living. He showed that great understanding can grow from quiet observation. He showed that patience and curiosity can reveal the hidden patterns of the world. And as the night grows quiet and your mind begins to rest, you can remember the peaceful life of Albert Einstein, a man who sat by windows, walked quiet paths, and gently uncovered the deep and beautiful truths of the universe. His story remains a calm reminder that understanding begins with simple curiosity and grows slowly through patience, reflection, and peaceful thought.